What's your favorite book you've read and why? The Count of Monte Cristo. A fantastic tale of revenge and if it's worth it. The Rebel series by Brian Jock. I love the adventure and questing and figuring out riddles. The way he described the feasts. God, I always wished I could experience a feast like that. The way he would write the different dialects for the different animals was so much fun. They are young adult books, but I'm nearing 4 decades and still love them. Been reading them since I was just a wee lad. Eulalia. For Redwill. Edit. Wow. I just woke up to see that this has blown up and I am just overwhelmed. Thank you all for the love and awards. So many replies. I was trying to respond to some, but I'm just too overwhelmed. A blubbering, weeping mess. Tears of love and joy. I assure you. Just know that I am at least reading every last reply and weeping with joy at how much love there is for Mr. Jacks and his works. The Hobbit. I remember my dad reading it to me when I was really little before they got divorced, so when I read it on my own I remembered some parts from then. Plus, it's a great story that I loved. The Name of the Wind. I was jobless for a while, super depressed, and close to homeless. That book played a huge part in getting me through all of that. I still reread it from time to time. Kitchen Confidential. It's just so honest. The way he reflects about his career while dropping in little bits of knowledge of how the culinary world works. East of Eden. I learned a lot about people and why they are motivated to do the crazy things they do. I also learned that there are people who are just straight up rotten. Can't be fixed. I think it's chapter 3 where he describes Kate as a monster, comparing that some people are missing an arm or a leg. Kate is missing something in her mind which makes her evil. Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Fabulous sci-fi imagination, filled with characters, worlds, technology, politics, and innocence which invoke the most vivid movie reel of a story in my mind each time I read it and the others in the trilogy. Update. Quotes. Blew up more than I expected. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Edited a word. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy minus just a nice satirical book that takes the piss at every turn and looks into the mind and motivations. Where else can we learn the secret to flying? Is to throw yourself at the ground and miss. Jurassic Park is the only novel I've sat down with and consumed within 24 hours. I love the movie, but the book is so much more detailed, and the characters so much deeper, and in some cases totally different. The Phantom Tollbooth. It was fun to read as a kid and then I picked it up again as I got older and noticed so many little details that kept it fun and interesting. Flowers for Algernon. That book was a roller coaster of emotions at the end. Where the Red Fern Grows, rips your heart into pieces. Animal Farm. 1. It was a satire. 2. I knew what it was mocking. 3. It was actually a good story. Ender's Game. I was 16 and a typical jock, not a reader at all. My chemistry teacher told me to read it. Blew my mind. Yeah, I know Card is an extremely questionable human being. My 16-year-old self isn't changed by what the guy is now. 1984 by George Orwell. Not to sound like that person who's woke off, but it really is a book that gets you thinking. It's both fascinating and frightening. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I first read it when I was 16 for a sci-fi class elective and it blew my mind. It is such an interesting read and it really challenges your perception of society and humanity. The Giver by Lois Lowry. I know it's 5th grade reading material, but it was really my gateway to how books can transport you to a different world. I know they made a movie about it, which doesn't do the book justice, as it often is. But damn, I really love that book. My second choice would be The Wind Up Bird Chronicles by Haruki Murakami, or anything from Haruki in general, just fantastic novels. Circe, and The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I am a fan of any Greek myth interpretation or retelling, But the way that Miller portrays and gets inside the heads of characters that have existed for thousands of years is incredibly unique and powerful. These books do not have to be read together as they just share a world, but would highly recommend both. Though just a side character in both, her Odysseus might be my favorite. The Book Thief. It's equally heartbreaking as it is wondrous in showing the strong bonds we can make with one another. The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Likeable characters, very strong story and doesn't pull any punches. Best book I had to read in school by far. Slaughterhouse-Five. It reads like silk poetry. So it goes. The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Catch-22 because I love satire and no other book I've read captures the absurdity of things quite like Hella did. The Martian. Hard, reality-based, science fiction with a smartass protagonist in a desperate struggle for survival. Watney displays constant problem-solving that shows real resilience of character, punctuated with moments of stupidity like anyone would have and humor that anyone would need to live through a disaster. Edit. Thank you for the gold. Motherfucking Grinch. It's about a miserable bastard who, in the depths of his mania, at the pivotal moment, stares into the abyss and says no, turning away to the path of righteousness forevermore. It's an essential piece of modern literature and will go down into the histories. Call of the Wild by Jack London. I love the whole transition and journey of the dog. Also because it's for a change not about people. Contact by Carl Sagan, about a radio astronomer named Ellie Arroway who discovers extraterrestrial life. There was a movie too which is also good, but different enough that I think the book is worth reading. I feel like I still read a lot, but I don't have obsessive favorite books like I did when I was younger that I read and reread a million times and underline favorite passages. But Contact came across at just the right stage of formative years for me, and showed me the kind of astronomer I wanted to be, and am now a radio astronomer who specializes in transient radio signals that turn on and off over time. No aliens yet though. Dune by Frank Herbert. If there ever was a book that could guide my life choices, this is it. Teaches me resilience, and that there is a big wide universe out there. There's a lot of philosophical and spiritual guidance out there, and I've been exposed to a fair bit. But the Dune series is one of enduring wisdom, and the layer upon layer of world building. Herbert was a linguistic genius. One downside, I read this when I was fairly young, and it ruined the genre for me in some ways because very few other sci-fi books have ever managed to approach its depth, let alone surpass it. By Lal Kafer. Edit. Thanks to the anonymous God Emperor who has gifted me with my first golden path. And thank you/Sterling Morgalaby for the second gilding, and you/Crigerino for more gold. That there's CHOM economic power, making it rain on Arrakis. Edit 2. Further thanks to gilding from the Lansrod Super PAC, /u/Blakers37, https, www.reddit.com/u/Blakers37, /u/Jivotma, https, www.reddit.com/u/Jivotma, and anonymous navigator. I can now purchase political influence like a civilized major house. The Picture of Dorian Gray. I just love Oscar Wilde's writing style and the book has such a deep meaning. It is one of these books you can get lost in. And I had fever when I read it, so that probably added to the getting lost in it effect. Hatchet by Gary Paulson. I love the story of survival and perseverance. I have read this book many times in my life and have referenced it throughout my lifetime. I am now a social worker and I work in a psychiatric hospital, and when I do my groups I will ask an icebreaker and have the patients tell me their favorite book. After that I'll give them this book, tell them what it's about, and use it as an example to continue on in life, to push through adversity and never quit. The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. Really shows how much possibilities there can be in sci-fi genre. It's not always just spaceships and lasers. It talks about a completely separate alien culture where the concept of genders do not exist, and the different societal norms that come with it. It goes into some more stuff too. The premise of the story is very intriguing and it's very well written. Silmarillion, slowest page turner ever. Stephen King's The Stand. It's big and intimidating, but the story is so good and written so well I found myself wanting to savor it. The story and world change throughout the book. I'm excited to leave it a few more years so I can read it again without knowing quite what is going to happen. Edit to say, going to stick the recommendations based on this to my to-read list. Cheers for them. I came to voice an opinion and have come away with a lot more. Velveteen Rabbit. Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. Fuck, I don't even know how to explain it. This is some real stuff that'll make you hurt in places you never knew you could hurt. If you're a sucker for a sad / melancholic, but real and honest novel, this is what you need. The Harry Potter series will always hold a special place in my heart. It may sound lame, and while they are not really literary masterpieces, they had such an impact on me growing up. The Ingenious Gentleman Don Quixote of La Mancha by Miguel de Cervantes. Absolutely fabulous novel that is a greatly entertaining read. It's hilarious, relatable, and enthralling. It shows that we are connected to each other across centuries. Written in the early 1600s, but it still holds up. Not a book but a trilogy. His Dark Materials. Really emotionally packed and drove me to tears at the end. The Road by Cormac McCarthy. The first time I read it I thought it was the best post-apocalyptic book I'd ever read. The second time I read it I realized it was the best love story I'd ever read. The third time I read it is when I knew it was the best book I'd ever read. Subscribe, like and comment if you hate outros, begging you to subscribe, like and comment.